Our brains are not wired to know this much information about people that we've never met in person before. And that's probably part of the reason why we all feel so behind. Welcome to Find Your Power podcast. I'm your host, Avery Jane. And before we even get into today's episode, if you are a loyal listener of Find Your Power, please give the podcast a follow on Spotify or Apple, or subscribe to the YouTube channel and hit the bell notification on there as well to get notified every time I upload a new episode. I'm saying this in the beginning today because Spotify recently informed me that I need to be telling you guys to follow me on there. So here I am. Thank you guys so much for that as well. I really appreciate it and it helps the podcast grow. So, into the episode. Today, I really want to touch on how easy it is to fall into the comparison trap. And even when you do know better than to do that, but it's just so easy nowadays to fall into it, anyways. And comparison is human, but it is getting louder and more difficult nowadays to avoid. So, I want to give you guys some tips on ways not to necessarily just stop comparing because I'm really not sure that's possible. But I want to help you guys kind of learn how to quiet out all that noise. So, to start out, I do want to talk about my personal experience with this. Of course, everyone has gone through something in their life where they've compared themselves to other people or someone in particular around them, whether they saw them on social media or it's someone that you knew in real life, and you probably got discouraged from doing the thing that you wanted to do, or maybe it just made you self-conscious about the things that you are doing. It made you feel insecure about your life. It made you feel like you're falling behind, you're not doing enough. All of these things are just the negative energy from comparison that we're trying to avoid. Of course, there are positive things in comparing yourself to others. If you're comparing yourself to others in a very minor way or aspect, it may be beneficial to you in some ways. Maybe that's just when it comes to trying to better yourself and you use techniques that other people use when it comes to certain things, whether that's the way that they work, the way that they initiate what they want to do, the way that they speak, the way that they communicate, whatever it may be. Sometimes comparing and contrasting yourself to others may be helpful. But in this episode, I'm mainly talking about the toxic comparison that we fall into, that comparison trap that's really leading to a lot of our downfalls. And a lot of the reason why some of us cannot build our confidence up and start the things that we want to do because we feel that it's already done or there's no room for us anymore to do that. And that kind of comes back to my personal experience. Like I said, just like you, I've fallen into this comparison trap before many times. And one of those times that is significant that I can easily remark on right here and now is starting this podcast. I initially thought of starting this podcast months before I actually started it or took any initiative to record the first episode or even think of a title. I thought of the idea of the podcast, and of course, in the beginning, I thought, oh, this is great. I want to start this. I had a lot of people in my life encouraging me to start the podcast just like I wanted to. But the problem was my mindset because in the beginning, I started thinking about all of the other people out there that have podcasts. I started thinking, what's the point? There's so many other podcasters out there. Probably they're all saying the same thing that I want to say. So many podcasts out there are probably better than mine could ever be. All those negative thoughts that we all should not be thinking ever, but of course we do every once in a while. And of course, this could apply to anything in your life, not just me starting a podcast, but maybe you've been in a situation similar where you wanted to start a new project, a new job, a new entrepreneurship, anything new that you wanted to start. Maybe it was even a hobby of some kind and you thought to yourself, this sounds like a great idea. But then right away, your mind started telling you things that you didn't want to hear. Like, there's already so many people out there doing this. What makes you think that you can be better than all of them? This is going to be really hard and very competitive. All of those negative things that come back to comparing yourself to others, to the community, to everyone else. And the thing is that I am not the same person that anyone else out there having a podcast is. And neither are you. You're not the same person as all those other people out there building their own businesses. You're not the same person as the other people out there making artwork. You're not the same person as all the other people out there that want to start music. That's what makes you different. Nobody is you, and you're not anybody else. So everyone has their own uniqueness to bring to the table. That's kind of what got me to start my podcast, is realizing that nobody is me. All the other podcasters out there, maybe some of them are saying similar things as me. Maybe a lot of them have a bigger platform than I do. But at the end of the day, none of them are me, and I'm not any of them as well. So we all have our own uniqueness to bring to the table. And I really want you to remind yourself this same idea when you want to start something new and comparison starts to get in your way. Nobody is you, and you are not anybody else. You have your own uniqueness to bring to the table. Your own experiences, your own values, your own perspectives, your own personalities, your own goals that nobody can take away from you and nobody can use from you as well. So, although in this particular situation, comparing myself to other podcasters didn't necessarily set me back too far, maybe just a few months, but there are many situations in life where comparing yourself to others can set you back much further than just a few months. And that's why I really would advise you to try to quiet out that noise. Of course, you may compare yourself every once in a while, or even more often than once in a while, but the trick is to quiet out the negativity and try to see through the comparison that you are individual as well. Now, I know in a lot of my episodes, I mention how social media is becoming so negative towards all of our lives. And the problem is that it's hard to avoid this topic of social media being so negative because it really is. Of course, I probably sound like a broken record saying try to limit your social media, and probably social media is the problem, the reason of all of our downfalls. But something that we all need to get into our heads, which I think we are starting to now in 2026, especially, that when you are on social media, you are watching someone's highlight reel of their life. You are not looking at their entire picture of their life. And you, of course, are living through the ups, the downs, the whatever days of your life every single day. You're living with yourself. But all of these people that you are seeing on social media, you are only seeing the best of the best most of the time. Of course, nowadays some people are showing a little bit more of the negativity, a little bit more of their sad days, a little bit more realistic outputs, but that's not always the case. And I think most of social media is still going to be the highlight reels of everyone's lives. This means that you are constantly being exposed to other people's successes, their amazing looking bodies, photoshopped or not, their lifestyles, their money, and their relationships. And all of these things are glorified, glamorized, and all of that in between on social media. And of course, you live with yourself and the reality of all of these things in your life. And a lot of times, these things can also give the illusion that people have it all figured out, which they don't. No one really does. And that's something you just need to remind yourself when you are on social media, scrolling or just going through people's feeds, because I think we tend to forget it when we're in the moment, and it can make you feel upset because you feel that you are falling behind. But like I said, these are the best of the best moments that people want to share, not their everyday lives. And just like I mentioned in the beginning of the episode, our brains are not wired to know this much information about this many people, especially those that we've never even met in real life. I've heard in many different sources and documentaries and whatnot that our brains have not evolved in 50,000 something years back when we were not living a life anything close to the life that we are living now. Our brains are not meant to know this much information about this many people. And talk about the details as well. We definitely shouldn't know this many details about this many people either. It's all just jumbled up in our brains, and sometimes it can get a little chaotic and noisy. I think it's just helpful to sometimes acknowledge what all you're taking in and realize that it's not all meant to be there. We are comparing our behind the scenes, as you may call it, lives to someone else's or everyone else's on social media's best moments. When it comes to what this negative comparison is actually doing to us, it really kills our motivation or creates unhealthy pressure because we feel that we cannot follow through with the things that we want to do if we cannot be perfect at it. It makes our goals feel unattainable. When we see so many other people accomplishing them, we feel maybe that there's already enough people out there doing that thing, so we cannot do that thing, which is really quite silly because there are so many opportunities in the world, so many people, and we shouldn't be eliminating what we can do just because other people do it as well. Negatively comparing yourself to others causes us to abandon things that we genuinely want. In my personal life, I know people that want to do something and maybe they really think that they are going to start this thing. They buy some of the equipment that they need to start this idea or this project, and then they just keep pushing it off. And part of the reason that I think they do this is because they think that they need to be perfect when they start. And that illusion that we need to be perfect if we start something is not necessarily your fault for thinking that way. I think most of the reason why we do is because when we see other people doing something that we want to do as well, maybe that's making new music or whatnot, all we see are the people that are the top of the charts, all we see are the biggest celebrities, and we think, okay, my first song needs to be the best hit ever. Well, that's not realistic. And I just love the quote that goes, make it exist and then make it good. Because that's truly what happens. What you don't see are those first 10, 20, 30 songs that those famous artists that you love now released that got maybe 1,000 listens or less. Those big shot celebrities, those big shot artists started somewhere just like you need to. And I think we forget that a lot of times because we just see the highlight. We think they popped out of nowhere. Oh, this celebrity just popped out of nowhere. And look how fast they just blew up and got famous. And look at this TikToker that just blew up and got famous out of nowhere. Of course, sometimes that does happen overnight, but most of the time, it doesn't. It happens gradually. You just don't see those first steps because those first steps are quiet. And that's okay. It's okay to start small and then grow from there. And I think that's the best way to do it as well because it really helps you to improve once you actually start. It doesn't have to be perfect the first time. You just need to start somewhere. And that comparison loop is going to keep you from starting. It's going to keep you pushing it back, making an excuse after an excuse until you think it's too late and you don't even start it at all. So, this perfectionism really leads to procrastination. When it comes to comparison in your future career, because of course this podcast is Find Your Power, and we do talk about future career paths and goals in this podcast. So, I do want to touch a little bit on how comparison can kind of hold you back from what you want to do in your future career. Part of the reason that this happens is because we look at the status, the money, we look at the jobs that look most impressive, and we go towards those ones. If you're in high school or in college and you are looking at the jobs that you think will make you the most money and make you look the most impressive, you're probably not going with your actual heart and your actual passion of what you want to do. And the thing is that sometimes we notice that later on, and catch that and realize that what we're doing is not for the right reasons. And that's good. You can self reflect and realize that later on. But other times we get caught in that loop of comparison and we stick with the thing that we don't actually want to do, but we do it because it sounds good, it looks good, and it makes you some good money as well. Because those are the things we see are the most glamorized, the most glorified on social media. Another way that comparison can keep you from your future career goals is because you are avoiding the path that you actually want to go on because you don't feel good enough, or you feel someone else is ahead of you already, so why bother? Or maybe you feel like it doesn't look or sound impressive enough. And those things shouldn't matter. It shouldn't matter how many other people want to do the job that you want to do. It shouldn't matter how impressive or great the job itself sounds. If it's something that's important to you, then you should go for it. And if you end up loving it and you actually get good at it, then the way that you talk about something that you love is going to sound impressive to anyone, no matter what. As long as you're passionate about it and you value the things that it means to you, it's going to sound impressive. But this comparison can impact our lives negatively because we're waiting for perfection instead of making progress into our future careers. A personal experience that I have when it comes to comparison and deciding my future career goals or academic choices. When I started college, I started on the physical therapy route because it felt like something that I wanted to do and I found interest in. After my first year of college, I heard a lot of people with the same major as me were on the pre med route of going into medical school and being a doctor of some kind. And this to me sounded very impressive. No, it always sounds like the optimal idea to do as a job. The optimal career path that you can go on is to be a doctor, right? So, of course, I am still interested in that kind of field, in the field of health science, but I decided to switch my path onto the pre med path or medical school route. And the thing is that I honestly am not sure if I really did that because I wanted to, or if I was stuck in the comparison trap of comparing myself and my career choice and my academic choice to the students around me, and maybe mine didn't sound quite as impressive, so I decided to go with something a little more impressive sounding and optimal. I ended up switching back to physical therapy, which is the route that I am on now, and I'm happy with this route now. But the thing is that I'm not really sure why I switched to pre med in the first place. But either way, I could have been stuck in that comparison trap. I'm not really sure, but I kind of did some self evaluation and realized that I wanted to switch back. So now here I am, back on the PT route. Now that I've told you about all the ways that comparison can be bad for you, now I'm actually going to give you some tips on how to quiet out that noise. Some practical tools that we can use are to kind of just check in on who you're following on social media. I think that's a good, important first step. I actually did this a few years ago. I started to realize that a few of the people that I was following, mostly celebrities of some sort, were starting to make me feel sad. And once you kind of evaluate the way that you feel when you see these people's posts, you can kind of realize if this is somebody's post that you should still be seeing or not. You can always use the muting strategy or just unfollow them if you need to. When it comes to comparing, it's important to kind of realize what triggers you the most. So, limiting those triggers is going to be the most beneficial for you. Most of the time, I would guess this is going to be certain social media platforms that you may be using. It may be something different for you, but just focusing mainly on the social media aspect right now, when you are scrolling on TikTok or Instagram or whatever social media platform that you use the most, I want you to take a moment to kind of notice how you feel before you start, and then go on your phone, do whatever, and then maybe check in and notice how you're feeling while you're doing that. And then once you put your phone down and you realize that you've had enough for the day or for the time being, I want you to check in again. One more time, just notice how you feel. Maybe you skip the middleman, maybe you just do before and after if that's easier. But just checking in on your mental health and noticing how doing the actions that you are taking are making you feel is kind of what's going to make you realize how to stop doing those things that make you feel poorly as well. So maybe scrolling on YouTube Shorts doesn't really affect how your feelings. Maybe it kind of just makes you a little tired, but it doesn't make you feel upset, frustrated, or insecure, or anything like that. So maybe you can keep that in your life. But maybe after you scroll on TikTok is when you're feeling insecure, you're feeling behind in life, and you're feeling upset. That's something to take note of. And maybe for now, you start to limit yourself to that app, whether that's cutting it out completely or just shortening the time that you let yourself use that app. Either one could be beneficial to you. I think there's a lot of times that we may get upset or frustrated with ourselves because we are feeling down, we are feeling upset, we are feeling insecure, we are feeling behind. And we don't understand why we are feeling this way. But if we just take a moment to reflect on the things that we are doing each day, we may find the reason why we are feeling this way. And it may be something that you're doing to yourself without even realizing it, such as scrolling on a certain social media platform for multiple hours a day. So, if you find that this is the culprit and maybe you need to take a break from some of your social medias for a little while, or maybe just slow down the access you have to them, you can think about replacing social media and scrolling time with something else that can be relaxing or restful for your brain. Maybe that's stretching, gentle yoga, maybe that's reading a book, maybe that's scrapbooking, maybe that's coloring, whatever may be joyful to you and relaxing to you. All of those are good options. Just find something that relaxes you in a similar way where you don't necessarily need to use so much brain power and you can kind of just let yourself be without making yourself upset and feel insecure. Sometimes you may need to even ground yourself and remind yourself of your own values and your own timeline. I also want to give you guys some mindset shifts that might help you a little bit when you start to fall into that comparison trap. Just remind yourself that someone else's success doesn't take away from yours, and that you're allowed to want something different from what's expected of you, or you're also allowed to want something that's the same that a lot of other people are doing as well. And I want to also remind you that progress is better than perfection. As we're starting to wrap up this episode, I'm going to give you guys some reflection prompts that you can use, whether this is in your day to day life or maybe you just check in weekly, but kind of thinking these questions to yourself to remind you that you are different from others. Your life is individual, it's not the same as anyone else's, and to kind of help ground yourself on what you actually want in life rather than the things that you're just watching on social media or the things that you think that you want because of outside perspective. First, you can ask yourself, what do you actually want? What do you actually want in life? Because maybe you think you want some things, but that's just because you see it a lot and you see that other people look happy with it. Ask yourself, what are you working towards? Like, without outside influence? And what season of life are you in? Because this person that you're always comparing yourself to on social media is probably in a whole different season of life than you. So, kind of reflect on where you are in life and what the next step is for you to get to where you want to get. I want to encourage you guys to define your success on a very personal level because I think success can be very generalized now and it kind of starts to mean the same thing for everybody, and that's not realistic at all. Success is very individual and it means something different for each person. So I think defining what that means for you individually without looking at how without thinking about how it looks to other people is really important. And also tracking your own growth and not others' growth is something that I want to encourage you guys to do moving forward. Some final reminders: you're not behind, you're not too late, you don't need to be perfect to start. Just please start. And comparison fades when alignment grows. And before I end the episode, I want to encourage you guys today, or if it's really late, maybe you can start tomorrow, to identify one area of your life that you compare the most and reflect on why do you do that, and maybe taking one step towards the thing that you really want to do. Like I always say, if you're feeling stuck right now, it's not a forever thing. You're also not alone, and everyone has gone through stagnant moments in their life. They have gotten through it just as you will now. Thank you guys so much for listening. Tune in every Thursday to watch or listen on YouTube or Spotify. Or for audio only, I am on Apple Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts, and Audible as well. Make sure to check out the Instagram or the TikTok at findyourpower_podcast, and feel free to send me a DM there as well. Thank you guys so much again for tuning in. I appreciate you all for being here. And if you enjoyed, please rate the podcast 5 stars on Apple or Spotify. And also give it a follow, like I mentioned in the beginning. Please, please, please. Spotify was bullying me for not having enough followers. So please don't let me get bullied by Spotify. Also, it really helps the podcast grow. If you listen on YouTube, it really helps if you subscribe there and like the video, leave any comments or reviews on there as well. And of course, if you have a friend or family member or loved one in your life that you really think could benefit from this episode or maybe this whole podcast in general, please send this to them. We don't gatekeep here, and they really might thank you later for it. And lastly, if you would like to be featured for an interview on the podcast, send me an email to the email linked in the podcast description, or you can shoot me a DM on the Instagram as well, and we can chat there. I will talk to you guys again soon. Thank you so, so, so much for being supportive here. And don't forget, we will find your power.